right, our next speaker practices at the Veterans Administration Hospital in Martinsburg, West Virginia, where he's also a professor at West Virginia University School of Medicine and developed the U.S. Air Force Efficient Running Program. Can I apply to that? That'd be fun. It sounds like it's fun. Oh yeah, for sure. But I'll be always up for being more efficient. For the past 40 years, he's run more than 100 marathons and ultra marathons with 30 straight years of sub 3-hour marathons. Very impressive. Recipient of the President's Award from the American Academy of Pediatric Sports Medicine. Please welcome to the stage, Dr. Mark Cucuzella.
Thank you. We're not going to talk about running today, so it's a little side thing, but your Regent's Park is beautiful in Hyde Park. But I mean, is this an amazing facility? I want to just give a huge thanks to so many colleagues across the pond. This is my first time to meet many of you. We started this listserv with Campbell 8 years ago, the hyperinsulinemia group, so I feel very connected to all of you, and David and Steve and Graham and so many people that I've met over the years, and Jen and Ian has come over. But Dave kind of Dr. Unwin teed this up very nicely for me. So in 20 minutes here, I'm going to try to add a little bit of context to this. It's not a debate, but why are we here today? When our patients are struggling, do we give up or do we look for other options? And we never give up. So disclosures, Dr. Unwin and I both help the Abbott Freestyle Lingo, CGMs. There's power from CGMs. I'm a part of the Nutrition Coalition and the Society of Metabolic Health Practitioners, which is an amazing group that you can join internationally. We're starting, Dr. Westman is also on the board of that group. So we're trying to develop our own specialty group on metabolic health. Sounds like Campbell's doing some of that work right where he is, and it's become accepted. Objectives, so we're talking about medical ethics with these medications, especially as the cost of these medications and the access and accessibility go down. Risks, benefits, how can we optimize the use? So if we are going to pull out this tool, how do we optimize the use? Off-ramping, I think, is an incredibly important topic. And now that these meds have been around a while and 70% are coming off of them at 2 years, we have to talk about how do we safely and effectively bring people off of these medications. If we have time, we'll do some case studies similar to Dr. Unwin. I have loads of case studies from my own clinical practice. So this is the future. I was given a talk on this topic actually a year ago. I did a really deep dive on this topic. I don't prescribe a lot of these medications. They're last resort. There's many restrictions. But I felt like I needed to understand these meds. So I did a very, very deep dive out in rural Tennessee, and we're pulling into town, and there's a bakery and a pharmacy at the same shop. So probably similar things going on here in the UK. Maybe the NHS will sponsor that. So let's just... And I'm kind of racing a little bit here. We're going to have time for a Q&A. But let's just talk about 2 case presentations. These are real cases. So at the Veterans Administration, we have a lot of veterans who lost, I'm talking stone now, I had to learn a new language, lost about 7 stone to get into the service. Right? So these people were genetically set up, environmentally set up. These were kids who were 150 kilos in high school, needed to get out of bad situations, and what do? I'm a 29-year military veteran. They join, or they want to join. You can't join. Right now, only 1 of 4 kids in our country are eligible to join military service. So they go full David Goggins. They go full Biggest Loser. One of these veterans, tuna and lettuce for a year, lost 100 pounds. Right? So they serve, they get hurt, they get PTSD, and they go out of the service. So one veteran, 35 years old, BMI 59, he's on a BiPAP, he's been given prednisone, he's been given all the PENS for mental health, and he's gaining weight. Done everything. He's been on different lower cost weight loss meds, and he's struggling. Another veteran comes in. He had 2 gastric bypasses, not 1 but 2. And again, these are military people. They understand diet and exercise, right? They've had to do this their whole life, so it's kind of talking down. Just eat less and exercise more. So I advocated for GLP-1s. How many of y'all in your situation would probably advocate these people need the prevention, right? What's the topic of this is prevention, versus prescription, right? Some people, an ounce of prevention and a pound of cure. Do some of our patients need a pound of cure? Some do, in my opinion. So I advocated for these medications for my patients. What do you think happened to me? I'm no longer at the VA, so scratch that out. And that's not a joke, right? So they removed me from my clinical practice. Yeah, that's what happens, right? When you defend your patients against authority. All right, so today's bout, right? Johnny Manjaro, right? Give it to everybody, or keto harder. Is it either or maybe both end? Do you think that these meds are going to put low carbohydrate diets out of business? Absolutely not. I think it's going to raise up what we do because they work effectively together when we look at the science, right? So with standard lifestyle measures, not what you are doing, these medications, standard lifestyle measures is like showing up at a gunfight with a knife, right? You can't ignore those lines, right? Look at 5%, 10%, 15% weight loss. This is standard lifestyle advice. It just does not work. We double down, then enter tirzepatide. But I think what's important when you look at the tirzepatide trials, SURMOUNT-3, SURMOUNT-5 just came out. So they only enroll the people who lost 5% of their body weight. They only enroll the people who lost 5% of their body weight. Their fasting insulins at enrollment was 13. And for most of us who actually deal with obesity, these are actually pretty well people. These are pretty well people. So if you didn't respond to standard lifestyle therapy, you weren't given the med. These people are probably too sick or maybe too food addicted. Just something to think about. Responders just to lifestyle get enrolled in the trial, and they become kind of hyper responders for many different reasons that we'll talk about. So the next one coming is this new triple agonist called retatrutide, also a glucagon inhibitor. So when you look at the trials on obesity, all the STEP trials, SELECT trials, so the weight loss is large, and the tirzepatide has greater weight loss across the board than SURMOUNT-5 just compared the two. So tirzepatide is probably a stronger gun in the knife fight if you're comparing against lifestyle therapy. The diabetes patients do not lose as much weight, and maybe you all have noticed that in your clinical practice. Yes, the hyperglycemia and hyperinsulinemia blunt the GLP-1 effect. So the sicker the people, the less they respond. So if we're promising someone with type 2 diabetes who is hyperinsulinemic or on big doses of insulin, they're going to lose 20% of their body weight, that's kind of magical thinking. Truly, that's magical thinking. It's not going to happen. Weight loss for health outcomes. This is about health, not disease. Not weight loss. This is about health, not weight loss. This is about disease. And a lot of the conditions we're trying to treat do need 10 to 15% weight loss. And Davis published on that. The diabetes remission is difficult. The sicker, the longer they're diabetic. These people need to lose significant weight to reverse their diabetes. They're a tougher fix when you're looking at just versus fixing blood lipids, which is a little easier lift. So some of these patients need significant weight loss. Semaglutide, in the type 2, you see much less weight loss in type 2 diabetes patients. So when we're counseling those patients with type 2, it's not a massive weight loss med for those people. Significant, but not massive. Tirzepatide looks a little better. You're looking at about 7 to 10% weight loss with the type 2 diabetes patients. But let's just throw in Virta's trial. This is GLP-1 versus low-carb nutrition 1-year results. So that looks pretty good. So 1 year, Virta Health achieved, about 13 to 14% weight loss, and these are in type 2 diabetes patients. So, before we even pull out the GLP-1s, a trial of low-carb nutrition this is what I do. So probably what all of us should be doing. This is a small study, but I think it's very interesting. They're actually measuring the levels of GIP and GLP-1 that, from serum. When people are hyperglycemic, they don't respond to the med than normal glycemia. So we got to fix the hyperglycemia if we expect the med to work, or it's probably not going to work. But let's get into these medical ethics, and I think David summarized it well. So what are our 4 pillars of medical ethics? If I'm on rounds with medical students and I ask them what the 4 pillars of medical ethics are, they kind of look around and maybe go to their phone. They don't even know what those are. But this really protects patients from abuse, and it provides a moral framework for us to do our job. And right now, as you showed the picture of the online doc, and you're kind of sham your stuff, right? But as long as the physician has the character to do so, and we're seeing a lot of our just professionalism. Like, I don't know where it's gone with this online prescribing. I don't really have words for it. Autonomy. Anytime, we don't put people on medicine, right? We don't do surgery to people. It's always shared decision-making, informed consent, freedom for coercion, full disclosure of risks and benefits. And this is always a process. This is not a one-time event. But we have to be healthy. We have to be honest with people about the health implications of their obesity, right? So there's all this healthy at any size movement, and I'm all for that, right? We should not be shaming our patients in any way, but we need to be blunt honest when they have multiple. So the two patients that I shared there, their life expectancy with BMIs of 50 plus is 15 years less than standard life expectancy. So that there aren't many, we have Thomas here, there aren't many cancers that have those kind of numbers. So we have to be honest about the negative impacts of obesity. Now, there's preclinical, clinical obesity. This article in The Lancet made a lot of discussion, some debate. We should be differentiating that. So if someone is metabolically healthy obese, they're going to have different goals than if someone is clinical obese, and maybe us as clinicians are going to counsel them different. One may be more for comfort, their joints, but the other person, this might save their life to lose the weight. So it goes without saying, a medication must do benefit for a patient. Giving a medicine to someone that will not benefit them is something we should not be doing. There are a lot of benefits. You go into PubMed and type in GLP-1 and whatever health condition you're studying, and your phone blows up. Right? So there are massive benefits studied already and potential benefits of these meds when used correctly. That is non-deniable. Like David shared some too. And this isn't really new. We hear this term pleiotropic, multiple effects on different cells, different parts of our body, different organ systems. Our brain makes GLP-1. This 2018 article, Restore and Maintain Normal Cellular Function. That sounds like a pretty good goal. I think that's what we're all trying to do in metabolic health. So maybe this can be an ally. We use these medications a lot. So these aren't new. They've been around 20 years. We use them in diabetes, for decade plus. And David and Campbell were on this paper. So this is 2021. We talked about deprescribing for diabetes. And this was a safe one to keep people on. At that time, we're like, oh yeah, this one's probably like in the green light, just costs more than metformin. But DPP-4 it probably has more net positive than negative. This was before it was an obesity drug, and this was in lower doses. This was not in the big doses. Now, if we're going to compare GLP-1 to insulin therapy, which one do you think comes out ahead? Yeah, GLP-1, right? So we give people insulin, they gain weight, and their diabetes doesn't go away. Does that sound like good treatment? Ethical treatment? No. You give people GLP-1, wait, their diabetes actually goes away. It's pretty good. Right? So apples to apples there. I think it's better than insulin. This, I think, is a really important article. We're learning a little bit more about how these medications work, what is different. So this one, just in Cell Metabolism, says tirzepatide did not impact metabolic adaptation, increased fat oxidation. So what is this metabolic adaptation? So the Biggest Loser trial, they lost 100 plus pounds in 9 months, and 6 years later, their basal metabolic rate was down about 550 calories, 600 calories. So outside of the muscle mass loss, there was this 300 calories that the body somehow is protecting. Like, they couldn't account for that. That's why there's no reunion party. But they did not see that adaptation with these meds. Meaning they didn't, because that's like a lose-lose situation, right? We just shut down your metabolism. So that's interesting. It was only 50 patients, but that's kind of interesting. But it also upregulated fat oxidation, right? That's what we're trying to do. So maybe there's something to this. And we know that people just stop, like they're not hungry. It's weird. Non-malfeasance, do no harm, right? So we should not do harm, and we should disclose all that. So Donald Rumsfeld, he was the Secretary of Defense, he said this: there are known knowns, there are things we know, there are known unknowns. That is to say, there are things we don't know, but there are also unknown unknowns. Things we don't know, we don't know. So two truths about a medicine, right? Either it doesn't work or there are side effects. So pretty clear to say there. All right, so we're not going to go over this again because David shared this. This is a VA database, 200,000 patients. Yeah, a lot of GI side effects are in the negative in 200,000. This is pretty good. Not really many life-threatening ones in there. But yes, side effects. The benefits are actually, some of these were curious. There were a lot of ICU benefits. There's septic shock, a lot of pulmonary stuff, respiratory failure, a lot of cardiovascular stuff. So again, everything's a trade-off. We know weight gain is a side effect. So we need to be honest with people and say, if you come off this med, you are likely to regain most of the weight. Not all of the weight, most of the weight. Muscle mass loss, have you all heard of the muscle mass loss? Yes. So now there's drugs that are kind of counteracting the muscle mass loss. Yeah, it's kind of dystopia, right? But it doesn't have to be this way, like this paper. So anywhere between 0% and 40%. So how do we not lose muscle? Eat protein and lift things. Okay, I'll take 0%. But if we just let people eat the same old shit and less of it, right, they're going to lose muscle. All right, so we don't want sarcopenic obesity. Sarcopenic obesity, that's when we are frail and thin. None of us want that. There's articles talking about the common sense approach, right? This goes for any weight loss method. Discontinuation, 1 year, 2 years. Now, some of this data shows it's missing the people. In my country, a lot of people kind of off-ramped from prescription because they lost coverage and then started to go get compounded. So there's some kind of fuzzy numbers here. We don't know the true numbers about who's actually coming off it, but we know that diabetes patients stay on it more. The weight loss patients tend to go, they tend to stop it. The ones who regain the weight tend to restart it. Insurance factors, poverty, it's very hard to access this medication. Right? In the federal government, you cannot get this medication unless you have diabetes. Justice. So that means if we have a treatment, it should be fair and equitable for the entire population that we're working with. And that is not happening now in the world of GLP-1s. But I think an important set of articles everyone should read, the Lancet, New England Journal, and Annals of Internal Medicine talked about medical ethics. Now, which group do you feel, just by your own witnessing, has the most to gain, the most potential years of life lost that we can help? Is it going to be a diabetes patient or that young patient with severe obesity? When you look at the ethical articles, it's actually going to be the young patient with severe obesity. We don't have a lot of other treatments for a lot of those people. Right? Cardiovascular disease, right? We put everyone on a statin and it works wonderfully. But no, we have a lot of treatments for diabetes. We have a lot of treatments for other diseases. But severe obesity, you're talking 20-25% weight loss, gastric bypass, GLP-1, or really keto hard. We see in America now probably a third of these meds are prescribed without FDA approval, right? They're off-label. They're going to be for people that don't meet FDA criteria for the drug. We know the cost is astronomical. I like the 170 pounds. It's much less here than in America. We're talking about $1,000 a month if you had to pay out of pocket. The compounders are now being shut down. Dystopia, someone else used that same word today too. So is this going to happen for kids? And I think this is really scary. Virginia Soul-Smith, she's an influencer. She says if you come to my house in the hood, you're going to get 9 Oreo cookies. So this is kind of what's happening now in America, and we can't win if this is going on. The med was improved in one single trial, 200 kids, one single trial. They approved this in adolescents, and some actually gained weight on the med. And they all gain it back after they stop the meds. So I think caution with using this in kids. If the fish are dying, do you medicate the fish or do you clean the water? Clean the water. This is interesting. South Park, actually watch this. It's actually comical, but it hurts you because it's like, oh shit, this is real. This stuff is real. Yeah, so watch it. Off-ramping. We're going to finish with off-ramping. All right, so we know the weight loss will regain, but actually the upside is they don't regain at all, and a lot of the metabolic improvements persist. So it's not all lost when they come off the med. There's still improvements. Because a lot of people, this is like holding a beach ball underwater, right? They come off and it kind of tends to surface. Verta did a very nice study on, they had about 150 patients, continue the GLP-1 or switch them to high-quality low-carb diet, right? And you saw things looked pretty even. So doing a well-formulated low-carbohydrate diet can be a way to off-ramp people from the med. I like this article too. A couple colleagues of mine in Nashville actually published it, and this could be a strategy for the 2-year thing. So they did GLP-1 for a year, go in, like hit the beaches hard, right? And then back off to generic weight loss meds. These are cheap. This can be, naltrexone, bupropion, could be phentermine. And they continued to lose weight. There's about 50 patients. So that's interesting. Right, because we know you got to get these people better. You got to get the insulin down. You got to get them better. So I think you're better maybe to go in hard early, right? We know that from Atkins induction, right? Like we don't mess around. Like people have better effects when we go in hard early. So I made a handout that is going to be available to you on your app. So we'll just zip through this and then we'll do the Q&A. Optimizing GLP-1, it's about health, not weight loss. These aren't magic shots. Your gut health improves the effectiveness, so we all know it improves our gut health, real food. Metabolic health is the foundation. Dosing is personal. Non-negotiables, strength train, aerobic activity, high protein, low carb, right? This is non-negotiable if you're going to fix this. Change your habits. These are the habits that sleep, stress, all of the things that just in the last 2 talks on the food addiction that sabotage us. Right, we're constantly self-sabotaging. These strategies apply to weight loss. It applies to low carb. It applies to everything. This isn't just there's nothing unique about what we need to do to support these people. Treat root causes. Minimum effective dose. I can't stress this enough. How many medicines, other than these, is the goal to crank the dose up as high as possible? I can't think of one. Our chemotherapies, even then, like sometimes you have to go there, but we're always looking for minimum effective dose. But this stuff is being managed online just with autopilot, cranking the dose. And the more the body's seeing the dose, the more the body is becoming less responsive to that dose. So there was a study, a pilot of 7-gram semaglutide shot. Holy cow, I'm not making that one up. It was published, 7 grams. I was like, that you'd be throwing up just to be able to tolerate that dose. Crazy. Boost GLP-1 naturally, eat healthy, low carb, all the stuff we talked about. Yeah, we're ethical providers here. All right. I talk to my patients in the handout. The bottom is, we got to go to work. So if you're going to get in shape, you got to go to work, right? And they're like, yeah, I'm in. They're military people. They're like, yeah, they like that. They want that. So I'll finish there. We're at 20 minutes. I have some case studies, very similar to David's that just show the power of low carb. When people fail low carb, it's crazy. Some of them it's like magic but they've learned low carb and they have the support.